A high school classmate's wife fabricates an affair with Sky on her blog, leading to her husband's confrontational visit. But when Sky faces off with the wife, a shocking truth is revealed: she's actually been having an affair with her husband's brother, and Sky was just a scapegoat to cover up the truth. Thank you for your subscription and likes. What would you do if it were you? You can leave your thoughts in the comments section. Hi everyone. Before we delve into the dark corners of the internet, I must warn you that these stories can be quite distressing. As we're about to find out, the internet can be a troubling and disturbing place. And that's why I have the perfect partner for this video in Luna, as we will soon discover in the stories. There are people out there lurking on the internet looking to exploit you. Have you ever had spam calls? Well, I have had a lot. Sometimes I don't even bother picking up the phone anymore unless I know who's calling. You get calls like that because data brokers are gleefully selling your information to scammers, spammers, and anyone else who might want to target you. Your full name, email, home address, health records, it's all out there. That's why I've been using Luna, the sponsor of today's video. Luna shows me which data brokers are selling my personal information and automatically submits opt-out requests for me. We all know how annoying it is to opt out of anything online. That's because they intentionally make it difficult. Luna cuts all that out and saves you time while protecting your information. Luna offers you more than just preventing these data brokers selling your information. They give you an antivirus, parental controls, a VPN, password management, identity theft insurance, and more. They will scour the dark web in search of your information, and if they find it, they will scrub it from existence where possible, help change your passwords, and offer a multitude of different solutions on your specific situation. Cleaning up my information not only helps reduce the amount of spam I get, but it also protects me from hackers who could use this information to access my social media accounts, bank accounts, or even other sensitive information. Luna is always on doing the hard work of keeping me safe, so I can focus on other tasks with peace of mind. That's why I rely on it when I'm searching the net. Click the link in the description to stop scammers and hackers profiting on your personal information. Go to Aura.com Nightmares to get a 14-day free trial. Once again, thanks to Luna for sponsoring this video. About a year ago, I was asked if I wanted to play some online MMO by one of my friends. At the time, I didn't know how much trouble a game would be able to cause me. Let me start off by saying that I haven't ever really been a gamer. I wasn't even aware you could have in-game chats with people. I didn't know what to do, but I wanted to give this online gaming thing a try, since my friends said it was so much fun. I joined a large guild, and some veteran players were kind enough to show me the ropes. Thanks to everyone's help, my character grew and I was enjoying my new gaming experience. One of the best players was a guy called Ethan. He seemed to be a pro. He was among the highest in our guild and boasted an armory of rare and difficult-to-obtain weaponry. He seemed to have all the best stuff and everyone looked up to him. Masaru seemed to care about me the most. I don't know if that's because I was the only girl on the team. He helped me raise my level and gifted me loads of cool weaponry and armor that he said he didn't need anymore. Everyone in the guild was surprisingly close to one another. They regularly had Skype calls and even met up in real life. We used Skype to speak to one another while we played. We chatted in the in-game chat and we exchanged email addresses. Most of the members of the guild lived in Evergreen and Kai. I lived in Northland, so I never attended any of the offline meetings. It was just too far to go and there were too many meetings for me to attempt to go to any of them. The distance between Northland and Kai is about 24 hours drive. That's 500 kilometers or 956 miles. So no, I wasn't really careful enough about what I was doing online. I realized that now without thought, I shared personal information about myself with people I hadn't even met, including members of the guild. Thankfully, I didn't reveal my address or my phone number. I'm really glad I didn't do that. Now let me tell you about Masu. He was a student living in Kai, and it seemed like every time I logged into play, he was ready and waiting for me. He was always eager to play with me, and I would get messages like these from the moment I logged in. I found Sky. That's my name. By the way, Sky, what are you doing at the moment? Are you alone? Oh, maybe not. I guess you could be with someone. Hi, Alex here. If I can just direct your attention to the screen, you will see the messages from this Ethan. One thing I need to point out is every time this Moss guy would message, he would send these emoticons. so keep that in mind. If nothing else, it adds to the cringe. I guess back to the story. He would send these messages to me in a one-on-one chat, excluding other members from the guild. He would send them to me when we were playing as a group and when we were doing our own solo plays. It was pretty intense. I responded dutifully to begin with, but one day I was busy hunting with another one of my friends in another group, and I just didn't have time to reply at that point, so I didn't reply. I just thought to myself, I'll reply to later. Then suddenly he sent me that emoon that he uses in the main chat that everyone can see who plays the game. He was supposed to be playing with someone else, but what it looks like he did was go in search of me to see what I was doing. I know it's only a game, but it felt a little weird that he did that. I should have probably realized that this was an early red flag, because he turned up and started talking to me in the game in an open environment that anyone could see. It felt as if I needed to apologize for not getting back to him in our private chat, and I feel like that was his intention because he was a veteran and I was this newbie, so I had to show contrition, I guess. So I said sorry and he replied with "It's okay, Mori, if you have more fun playing with others than playing with me." He posted that emoon that was quickly becoming his calling card. After replying to me, he logged out, and that was weird because this guy was always logged in. I was shocked by his lack of embarrassment. My friends were shocked too. It was so weird of him to come over and find me then do this lame sulky quit thing. Now I realized that was the point. His unusual obsession with me was beginning to be revealed every time I logged in from that day forward. The first message I would get would be his emoticon. The game we played had this friend list built into it, so whenever someone in your friends list appeared online, the list would light up and tell you which part of your friend was at. I'm certain that Ethan was sat there waiting for me to log in and monitor my location in-game. I found his actions creepy and I didn't feel like dealing with him for a while. So I planned on giving the game a break and not logging in for about a week or so. After about a day at best of not logging in, I got an email notification to my phone, and I bet you can guess who those emails were from. They went like this: "Hey, why haven't you been logged in for a while?" Followed by that dumb emoticon. All of his messages were followed by that emoticon. "I feel lonely without Mori. I guess maybe you hate me, but I don't understand, because I like you so much. Okay." At first it was chat in the game, and then it evolved, and now it was getting closer to harassment. I have a private life and I preferred to keep that from the internet, and I wasn't interested in Ethan becoming a part of my private life either. On top of all this was the fact that Ethan was a college student and I was a working adult. Didn't really have the free time to play email ping pong with him, but he seemed to have endless hours of free time himself. The emails were so constant it was a nightmare. They would come in the middle of the night, the morning when I'm at work or on a break. It was too much, so I decided to act. I decided to respond, "Hey, when I'm playing games, I want to have fun with everyone who plays, so I don't really want to give you special attention. I have no intentions of doing that. I have no special feelings for you, and I want to make that clear. I'd also like for you to refrain from sending me these emails at all hours of the night. It's annoying." I wrote something like that, and in a matter of moments I had a response from Ethan. It was that emoticon he used all the time and nothing more. I sighed at the sight of that and locked my phone. Was so tired of that. From that day onwards, I stopped speaking to Ethan and I stopped playing that online game. Well, I think I might have logged in once or twice more, but I really just couldn't enjoy it again. About 3 weeks after I quit playing online, I got an email from someone else that I used to play with, someone from my old guild. "I haven't seen you online recently. Maybe you got busy, but hey, we all miss you. So if you ever get lonely, log back in and hang out with us." Moss seems to be a lot busier these days. He quit university or something. We don't see him log in at all anymore. Moss sat quit university. I somehow felt a bit of a bad feeling about that email. Having said that, I decided that I would log back in when I was free. I replied with some words to that effect and then completely forgot about the whole thing, a little about what I was doing at the time. I was working as a certified instructor. Basically, I visited educational bodies, and back then I was in charge of free trials, a means of my company to get work. I guess at the end of each free trial period, participants were asked to fill out a survey. It was a simple questionnaire where you could enter your thoughts on the instructor, me, and what you made of the class and the content, and, of course, some personal information about yourself, such as your name, address, etc. We asked our participants to fill this out online via a QR code. One day, I was looking through the questionnaires at the office and compiling the results into a data chart. That was my job. I was scrolling through the entries and I froze my hand, stopped rolling on the wheel of my mouse. Hi Alex, here I will show you a photo on screen of what op saw impression of the class Ethan's emoticon impression of the instructor. Ethan's OTAN name, Ethan address can EY. It felt like all the hairs on my body was standing on end when I saw that he had found me and he had attended my class. Couldn't believe it. I still cannot believe it. I racked my brain to try and remember incidences when I might have revealed personal information about myself to Ethan. I think I might have told him I worked as an instructor in Northland's largest city, but nothing more than that. Surely the bad thing about saying that was, I wasn't sure if I said that my office was in the building in front of the station or not. I feel like I might have said that, but I'm not too sure. I was so scared that day that I ended work early, and instead of going home, I decided to go to see my parents. They lived a good 200 kilometers away, or 125 miles away. I stayed with them that night. It helped that I wasn't supposed to be working the following day. It was a scheduled day off in the coming days. I decided to inform my guild friends about Ethan and let them know why I was leaving the game for good. I was told that Ethan had told the guild he was looking for a job in Northland recently, where I lived. I knew I needed to do something about him, so I changed my phone number, email address, and I quit my job. I left Northland after a few months and I met a guy and I ended up falling in love with him and we got married. Although some of what went down was my fault for sharing too many personal details about myself online, it was truly frightening to discover someone I had met online would go to those lengths to track me down. I had no idea that someone who I had met through a game could be capable of acting like that. I guess for some this may not seem as scary written down, but to me, the person who lived, it was terrifying, truly terrifying. I don't think I'll ever be as shocked as I was the moment I saw that online questionnaire filled in by Misu. This OTAN as well. I can't unsee it, and that is the reason why I'll never play online games again. Have you guys ever heard of Clubhouse? It's a fairly new social media site that's pretty hot at the moment. Clubhouse is essentially an audio version of Twitter. You can enter these kind of chat rooms with different discussion themes. You can chat or just listen in on topical conversations. I tried it out for the first time not too long ago after one of my friends was raving about it. I didn't expect to be that interested in it. To be honest, I didn't have high hopes. I did, however, think that it would be a pretty good tool for business to listen in on business-like conversations. Offer me a couple of interesting insights. I wasn't very familiar with social networking sites. I've only ever used Twitter and a little bit of Facebook, but once I started using Clubhouse, I found the experience to be rather fun. Conversations were taking place in real time. It was very free-flowing, and one thing I liked about Clubhouse was the fact that recording was prohibited, so everything felt fresh. There were no repeats. It was also pretty cool to hear what famous people were talking about in their rooms. It gave you a kind of behind-the-scenes passage into their personal lives. Before I knew it, I was hooked. I was in and out of different chat rooms all night listening in. Sometimes I would speak in my own room, but I have to say more often than not I was the listener because I spent most of my time hopping from room to room. I ended up discovering some niche topics, unpopular rooms, and even some mysterious content. For example, I joined this chat room where there was no one talking. All you could hear was the sound of someone tapping away at the keyboard. It seemed to be a room where people were logged in working together in silence. Maybe it was something to do with telework that was on the rise at the time, or perhaps something else was going on. Either way, it was pretty weird. There was another room where someone was repeatedly chanting Buddhist sutras. I started off feeling a sense of wonder as I listened, but then I was quickly overcome with an immediate sense of sleepiness and I had to leave. I also entered overseas rooms. I listened to conversations in English without understanding much at all of what they were saying, but it was still fun to listen, though there were many times where I just lost track of time and ended up staying late, hopping from room to room listening. One night, I entered a room created by someone who called himself Mr. Shadow. You couldn't tell the gender from the profile pic. They just used a completely black icon. I guessed that it was someone from abroad, so I thought I would hop in and see what they were talking about. I joined the room and at first I thought it was one of those silent rooms again, but then I realized that I could hear some faint voices speaking. A man and a woman were talking. Their voices were so faint that I couldn't make out what they were saying, let alone what language they were using. It sounded like they had just left the chat room open on a desk or something. Even though I couldn't make out what they were saying, I could understand the tone of what they were saying, and it was increasing sounding like it was becoming hostile. Are these two live streaming an argument? I wondered. Certainly sounded like two lovers quarreling to me. I wondered what would happen next. So I kept listening to Mr. Shadow's room. I listened for a while longer, but I grew bored and went to change rooms. But just before I changed rooms, I heard the woman in the argument scream. It was so loud that I instinctively removed my headphones. Her scream pierced my eardrums. What the heck is going on? I wondered. I quickly turned the volume down a little and then put my headphones back on. By that time, I could hear Mr. Shadow's room again, and the screaming hadn't stopped. At the same time, there was this dull thudding noise which sounded to me like someone hitting something very hard. After a while, the woman's scream stopped, and then the only sound I could hear was the sound of a male voice panting, breathing very heavily. Next came the sound of him walking around the room and rummaging for something. It sounded like he was rooting around through a cutlery drawer or toolbox. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, and I couldn't stop myself from continuing to listen. Then there came this strange clicking, grinding sound. I realized after a couple of seconds what that sound might be. It sounded to me like someone was sawing something. I gasped as my mind put together a picture based on the noises. I was hearing a very disturbing picture. I had to ask myself if I was listening to the sounds of someone being murdered and then dismembered. I suddenly felt very nauseous, and I took my headphones off again to run to the bathroom. When I came back from the bathroom, I went to check my phone. I was expecting hoping for some amateur director or actor to explain that. What I had just heard was some special effects works that they would be using in a movie. But all I saw when I looked at my phone was a notification saying that Mr. Shadow had closed the room, essentially ending the live stream. Obviously, I have no way to confirm if what I heard was an actual crime. It could have been just something fake, something made up to scare people. Well, if that's the case, then it certainly worked on me. One thing I will say is I searched for Mr. Shadow's room again, not sure why, perhaps out of morbid curiosity, but more likely out of a desire to prove what I heard was fake. When I searched for his room, it always returned 0 results. I never saw that chat room again. So if that was a prank, it was a one-time thing to a very small amount of listeners, and that to me just doesn't seem worthwhile. I was left with a mystery. Although I really enjoyed that app, that experience put me off using it again. I felt very aware of the fact that the internet was full of strangers and horrors. It was like I lifted up a rock and I saw what lived beneath it, the ring and squirming of things that prefer to operate in the dark. I'm more wary about what I do online now. I got transferred to a rural area of Evergreen with work. It wasn't the worst timing in my life, to be honest, because my child was about to start kindergarten, so it felt like the move wouldn't disrupt our lives too much. We enrolled our child into a kindergarten, and over a short space of time we were introduced to a few of the parents. I was surprised when I realized that I recognized one of the faces in the crowd. It was someone that I went to high school with, who will be herein referred to as A. It was a surprising coincidence, but the truth of the matter was that A and I weren't that close. We were just in the same classes at school. I'm sure you can relate to what I'm saying. Just for clarification, I'm a guy. She's a woman. Bear that in mind for this next part. One weekend earlier this year, I got a knock on my door. I was having dinner with my wife at the time, and we weren't expecting company. That night, I went to the door and looked through the people, and I saw a strange man stood outside there. I opened the door, expecting it to be a neighbor stopping by, but it wasn't. "Hey, I'm Tom. You know why I'm here, don't you?" I didn't know what to say to this guy, and of course I didn't know why he was there. My only thoughts were about getting back to my dinner. He said some other stuff that I didn't really understand or care about, so I quickly became impatient with him and his conversation, so I cut him off mid-sentence and I asked, "Look, do you need something?" As soon as I asked that, I knew I had pushed him to the edge. I'd expect that kind of attitude from a guy like you. Yeah, 'cause you're the kind of guy who thinks it's fine to put your hands all over someone else's wife. HARU. He was close to yelling. I could tell that he had come here to cause a scene and try to embarrass me. I stood there in shock. I didn't know what he was talking about, just as I was thinking. Oh great, I met the local lunatic. I heard my wife patting down the hall towards the front door to join us. She must have heard the commotion. The guy at the door then just thrust a piece of paper at us both and ordered us to read it. I could tell from the first glance that it was a print out of some kind. That printout turned out to be from his wife A. It was her blog postings, that acquaintance of mine from my school days. I looked through it, trying to make heads or tails of what this man was accusing me of. I was utterly shocked to find that the printout was a catalog of lies. His wife had imagined a relationship between her and me. It was as if she had written down her fantasies. I need to tell you a little bit about what I saw in those pages. So here it goes. I was reunited with. I had such a crush on him at school. Apparently he moved here through work. What a wonderful coincidence. I know where he works and what window he sits by at work. It's so good to have him so close by again. When his wife stepped away for a few moments at kindergarten, he asked me to give him my email address, and I did. It was such a thrill. From that day onward, I received an email from him every day. He took me out to dinner and asked me to keep it all a secret from his wife. Well, I get on well with his wife, kind of, but I liked him too much to stop all the fun. So I went along with his lies. I did as he asked. I can't believe that this guy is sending me such dirty emails while keeping a straight face when I see him and his wife at kindergarten. Next he told me that he would take some paid time off and asked if I wanted to go on a drive with him to a secluded area. I did want to go with him, so we met up, we had lunch at a swanky hotel and then checked into our room. It just went on and on like that. She listed a few more personal details about me, which I don't wish to share online, and I have no clue how she found out about them. Needless to say, I didn't check into a hotel with her. I didn't send her erotic messages, and hey, I didn't even ask her for her email address. It was all lies. Her husband wasn't interested in my side of the story, though. He just said things like, well, if it's not you, then who else moved into our area that she went to school with? Who else has the same name as you, and who else works where you work? Apparently these rumors had been spreading for a while. It didn't feel great to know that we were probably being pointed at and spoken about behind our backs. The friends we thought we had made were all likely thinking that I was cheating on my wife, and that just wasn't true. I found out after the fact A's blog posts began to include plans for her and I to run away and elope, and in her words we promised each other that we would abandon our current families. This all came out when a friend of a contacted her husband to let him know about her blog posts. Her husband apparently didn't even know that she kept a blog, but became utterly furious when he discovered what she had been writing. He confronted her and she doubled down with her delusion. He said she cried as she told him about it. I can only assume that those were tears of embarrassment or guilt, but not guilt of cheating because she was innocent of that and so was I. Well, those tears and her inability to tell the truth led the angry husband to my door. He didn't seem to be interested in anything. I said he was there to yell at me, and it looked like he wanted to go further than that. I showed him my phone, my emails, but it made no difference. This guy just didn't want to see sense. He said that I could have deleted all the emails and calls and I could be using different accounts, etc. He was adamant that I had done all the things he had read on his wife's blog. It wasn't until my wife stepped in that he was willing to listen to the voice of reason. Excuse me, but the only proof you seem to have is your wife's blog posts, right? Well, why don't you go and see if you can gather any other evidence, and I'll do my own evidence gathering this side, and by all means, if you find something competent enough to come back here, I'll open the door to you again. Give me a couple of days with that. He packed away his little printouts from his wife's bogus blog and left. I was confident in my ability to be proven innocent, so I had no fear when I received an invitation from A and her husband to meet at a family restaurant to discuss our issue further. I guess that some people might find that a bit weird of me and my wife to agree to meet with them, but let me just say, when you've been accused of something that you know you're innocent of and you feel that all the eyes of the community have been on you for the longest time, then you would be eager like me to clear your name. I imagine we headed to the restaurant. At least it was a neutral setting with many potential witnesses. I saw the husband there with all his printouts again. He wasn't alone, though. There sat next to him was the cause of all my problems. From high school. My wife and I didn't come empty-handed, though. We arrived with receipts, literally cell phone records, credit card statements, timesheets, business trip information, the whole 9 yards. None of it would match her blog posts, I had an alibi for every occasion then, as if a light went on in the husband's mind. He turned to A and said, "If you're not talking about this guy, then who the hell are you cheating on me with?" I was so convinced that A was about to say something like, "I just made the whole thing up, 'cause I was bored." My wife agreed with this theory. I just have to quickly thank her for her understanding about the whole situation. Could have been a whole lot worse without her support, so we expected her to say that she made it up, but instead she actually gave her husband a name of some other guy. I didn't know who he was, though. I asked her who he was, and I noticed that there was a silence on their side of the table. The name she spoke had significance. I looked at the man Tom, and he looked pale. "Are you talking about my brother?" Yep, surprisingly she was having an affair with her husband's brother and seemed happy enough for me to be the shield for that affair I get. It must hurt less when it's not your brother. But why up my life? I started to blur out some reasons for her affair with his brother. At that point, you always come home late. You work national holidays. You don't care about me or your family. Clearly, it was inevitable that I would end up feeling so lonely. Can't you see that? Sorry to say, but your brother is there where you weren't. I went ahead and asked the question that had been on my mind since her husband darkened my door. Why the hell did you involve me? Why did you make up all that stuff about me? Do you have any idea how much damage you caused me? In response, all she did was wail like a scolded toddler. I knew I would never get a straight answer of her, but to my shock, she eventually blurted out something close to a tangible reason. She said she was so embarrassed by her brother-in-law's age difference and social status. Apparently he was older than me and only worked part-time. He took her to internet cafe dates, and it was in those moments that she fantasized about high-class dates, and I guess that's where the blog post started. In the end, I didn't feel any embarrassment. I was proven innocent, and my wife was vindicated for sticking by my side. I was ready to walk away from these two, and I was already looking forward to having nothing to do with them ever again. Before I walked out of the family restaurant's door, the husband stopped me. He approached me and said, "I'm so sorry." I accepted the apology. Of course, he bowed his head and made a huge show of it. He didn't need to do that. Actually, that was probably the only point where I felt embarrassed, if I'm honest. The following day, a care package was delivered to our door. It contained expensive sake and snow crap. I guessed that it was another one of his apologies. In the days that followed, A's daughter was absent from kindergarten, and eventually she left the school altogether. A's family seemed to have suddenly moved. I always wondered about where they ended up and what happened to them. I actually was lucky enough to find out a few more details when I went back to my hometown, the hometown where A and I went to high school. I was there to attend a friend's wedding. Apparently I had moved back. Her husband had filed for divorce and taken custody of their child. She initially moved back in with her parents, but they kicked her out for some reason. Apparently she had lots of drinking parties where she would complain about her ex and the circumstances for their divorce. Within a month or so she was looking for a new partner, apparently, so I guess it didn't work out with her husband or his brother. I hope that her husband finds peace and a partner who will treat him right. I wish him no ill, and I hope he can get over that hideous betrayal. I have to be the most grateful to my wife, though, for sticking by me through it all, even though before we went to meet them at the restaurant, she told me that if they could prove I was having an affair with his wife, then she would cut off an appendage of mine and turn it into a stew. You can guess which appendage, right? Yeah, that one, the best one. I made my wife's birthday extra special that year and every year since. I'm a lucky guy to have her, and I'm just so glad all that stuff is behind us now. I got into a university in Tokyo. It was my first time living in the city, and I was really nervous. I thought that I would have a hard time adjusting to life there. I didn't realize that my problems had nothing to do with living in the city. This happened when I was living alone. I had an apartment rental on the first floor of an apartment block. I can't lie, it was horrible. It was cramped and dirty and just not nice. I just had enough room for a bed and a desk in there. I remember there being like only 1 or 2 electrical outlets, so I had to get loads of extension cords to get the setup I wanted. You need a lot of electric when you live alone. I had no idea. Wi-Fi routers, chargers, cooking appliances, it all adds up. I loved being online back then, and the first thing I got sorted was the internet connection. I spent many nights surfing the net in that apartment, and it was on one of those nights, fairly early into my tenancy in that room, that I found a weird link online. I think I came across it on a bulletin board, and the enticing title that made me click on it was something as simple and as dumb as "This video is crazy. Check it out." Well, I knew that message board was good for funny content, or at least something gross, so I thought I would find something interesting if I clicked it. I wasn't ready for what I witnessed. The content of the video began to play, and it was extremely brutal. It seemed to be a gang attack, a foreign gang. I couldn't make out any of the words that they were saying, but I understood the screams of pain, and I saw the sharp and pointy weapons this gang wielded in their attack. They went at one guy with a machete and they turned him into sashimi. It was horrible. There were blood splatters and severed limbs. The worst part was the disturbing screams of horror and pain. It was heart-wrenching and also psychologically damaging. I could only stand to watch it for a couple of seconds before I had to turn it off. I had to turn my whole computer off. I wanted nothing more to do with the internet that night. Nothing else happened that night. I felt a little disturbed and shocked, but that was pretty much. It was the next day that something happened. My laptop, which had been working perfectly until I watched that horrible video, suddenly wasn't working anymore. It wouldn't turn on. My first thought was, oh great, you got a virus from that horrible link. Then I guessed that it could have been a malfunction of some kind. I wasn't sure, so I phoned customer support, but they were no help. I remember testing the USB ports to see if it would at least charge my phone or not, and nothing worked. Did something trip the breaker? I wondered maybe there was a power outage in our building. I looked all over, but I couldn't find a good enough reason why the laptop wasn't working. I don't know what happened, but no word of a lie. All the electronic items I had connected to that outlet that was plugged in. When I watched that horrible, brutal video, no longer worked. My computer, the plugs themselves, my charger, my USB storage drive, they were all broken, and no matter what I tried, they weren't reparable. They were dead. I'm not a spiritual person, but I have thought on occasion that perhaps seeing that video had something to do with why my electronics were permanently damaged. I don't care if it sounds stupid. I'm keeping my identity and on anyways, but I just wonder if the resentment and hate that victim in the video I watched might have carried some grudge for those who watched that video. I don't know why all my electronics needed to be replaced. That's all I got as a theory, though ghosts in the machine right for.